I want to read this it's a quote. I think I can read this. This is in response to my question about why we would want to separate the narrative of this guy's sexuality from the story. And Dr. High says it goes back to the community under siege that Kieran Opal talked about. As long as identity politics are being weaponized for political agendas, groups are going to defend and excuse their identities from the narrative, when in fact we need safe spaces to discuss hate, even in our own communities. Queerphobia, biphobia, transphobia, and issues are issues in LGBT communities too. Deflecting prevents needed conversations, in my opinion. If people are on the defense with how a certain facet of his identity played a role in the shooting, they aren't having the right conversations. Essentially, the two different conversations to me comes down to this: how to properly. Okay, and then she shares some links. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't have an applaud track, not tonight. But yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking, and I didn't want to be the one to say it because I'm not from the LGBTQ community, right? I don't want to speak on behalf of a community that I'm not in the trenches with them, right? But yeah, I co-sign that 100%. So just to a quick summary of what she was saying is that for people who are out there saying that we have to treat this as two different stories, that his sexuality had no bearing on his action. It's a knee-jerk reaction to trying to defend your community from outside critique, and it prevents your community from having that necessary internal conversation to address the issues that are inside of your conversation. And Q, I think that's something great. I don't know if you could take a picture of that. It's a long one, but if you could tweet that out for everyone, I think that's great. Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to talk about that story one more time because it's really not going away. It's something that we have to look at and discuss. And I think one of the most resounding lessons to be learned out of this is exactly what Q mentioned, Dr. Q mentioned, and exactly what Kieran Opal mentioned. And it's something that I've been meaning to. I've mentioned once a very long time ago. It's our inability or our unwillingness, or no, we're not able to have these necessary internal conversations because we're bombarded from outside so much, right? We're attacked so much. And the best example I can give you would be this past weekend in Chicago. I think 27 people were shot and 7 were killed, some ridiculous amount. And this happens every single weekend in black communities in Chicago. And yet we have a knee-jerk reaction to push back against people who are trying to criticize the black community because of the violence in the black community, right? And we're not able to have the internal conversations that are necessary to say, listen, what the hell is going on in Chicago, man? Chicago, get your shit together. Right. We need to get, I hate to sound like Bill O'Reilly, but damn it, Bill O'Reilly had a video a couple of weeks ago or last week that was spot on. Like, we need to shut Chicago down. Like, with the number of people being killed in Chicago, there's the National Guard should be in Chicago. Of course, there's problems with the National Guard, but something has to be done in Chicago. And we're not able to have those conversations because in one day, only one day out of 20 years of hearing Bill O'Reilly, he says something sensible. On every other day, we're bombarded with nothing but the most racist, vitriol, and opportunistic narratives to forward their agenda at our expense. And we're not able to have a respite, a moment, a lull where we can actually just tend to our community without having to constantly fight back against these narratives that are set out to destroy our community. That's how it is in the black community. And that's just one issue in the black community out of many issues, a myriad of issues that we have to confront. And so it's the same thing as with Kieran Opal this week. She said the same thing with Islamophobia and being used as a means of attacking Islam. It doesn't give Muslims the chance to breathe so that they can address the homophobia and the reforms that are necessary in Islam, because you have people from every side. And granted, the reality of it is there is no safe space, right? There's no safe space. We're going to have to do both and. We're going to have to simultaneously fight pushing back on people on the outside and fight against the people on the inside. It's too much is given, much is required. If we know this, if the LGBTQ community knows this, and that there are voices out there who are trying to ignore his sexuality to prevent any other conversations or to knee-jerk reaction protect the LGBTQ community, the reality of it is that if you understand that, then the responsibility is there for you to do both and, because they're never going to give us a moment to breathe. They're never going to give us a moment where we can sit still and just peacefully take care of the issues in our community. It's a dual front. It's a dual battlefield every single day for every community.